You never hear them arrive. You only see the trace they leave on the glass. Green phosphor, spinning at 12 revolutions per minute, slicing the dark into sectors. If you have ever stared at a scope long enough to memorize the rhythm of its sweep, you know the exact moment reality fractures. It does not break, it bleeds. One frame is empty water. The next is geometry. I learned that lesson at 0214 hours on the 14th of October, 1982, when the Baltic Sea decided to show us its memory. I was on watch at Radarposten Gryt, a concrete blister bolted to the basalt cliffs north of Karlskrona. Officially, it was a secondary early warning node for the Blekinge coastal defense sector. Unofficially, it was a listening post for things the Admiralty preferred not to name. The air inside the operations room sat at a steady 9 degrees Celsius, recycled through cracked ventilation grills that smelled of diesel, damp wool, and stale coffee. Outside, the wind held at 14 knots from the northeast. Barometric pressure was dropping. Relative humidity had crossed 98%. The kind of night where fog does not roll in. It materializes. I sat at the console, hands resting on the edge of the steel desk, knuckles pale under the low-amp work lights. My uniform was standard Kustartilleriet issue, M70 field jacket, wool undershirt damp from condensation. I kept a logbook open, a mechanical pencil ready, the ink on the page already fading into a grid of routine entries. 0100, sweep nominal. 0115, comms check with sector command. 0130, wind shift recorded. Nothing out of the ordinary. The sea was quiet. Or so it seemed. My call sign that rotation was Gryt Vact 7. 2 other men shared the room, Corporal Lindy on the communications array, and Private Berg, who monitored the optical rangefinder and maintained the perimeter log. Lindy was 24, meticulous, the kind of operator who treated every transmission like a signed receipt. Berg was 19, sharp-eyed, but still learning how to separate weather patterns from tactical signatures. We did not speak unless the protocol required it. Silence was a working condition in that room. You listened to the equipment. You listened to the water. You listened to your own breathing until it synchronized with the sweep. At 0148, the radar trace caught the first anomaly. I watched the bright line pivot across the northern quadrant, painting the water in concentric arcs. Then, a cluster of contacts appeared. Not a single return. 9 distinct blips, bearing 042 relative to our position. Distance, 11.4 nautical miles. Velocity, steady at 8 knots. Heading south-southwest. I marked the pencil against the grid. 9 targets, perfect abreast line. Spacing held at 400 meters. Formation discipline that would make a textbook jealous. I adjusted the gain knob to filter out sea clutter. The blips sharpened. They were solid. They were synchronized. Berg, I said, voice flat. Optical check. Bearing 042. Distance 11 nautical. Confirm visual. Berg shifted his weight, boots scraping against the linoleum. He moved to the rangefinder viewport, wiped the condensation from the glass with his sleeve, and braced his shoulders. The mechanical focus wheel clicked as he brought the lenses to range. He stayed still for 12 seconds, then 20. I watched his posture tighten, the rigidity of a man trying to reconcile what his eyes see with what the machine reports. Negative, he said finally. Fog layer at 200 meters. 0 visibility beyond the breakwater line. No hull signatures, no running lights, no wake turbulence. I logged it. Visual mismatch. Radar confirmed. I ran a manual calibration sequence on the PS16 set, cycling through the pulse repetition frequencies. The contacts remained. 9 returns. Identical radar cross-sections. Identical speed profiles. They were not drifting. They were tracking. At 0151, I initiated a sector command uplink. I keyed the handset on the RA 104 field radio, switched to channel 3, secure narrowband. Bewackning 6, this is Gryt 7. Radar contact confirmed. 9 unknowns. Bearing 042. Range 11.4. Velocity 8 knots. Formation abreast. Requesting sector verification and visual intercept. Over. The speaker crackled with the baseline hiss of atmospheric static. Then a voice cut through, clear but strained. Gryt 7. Bewackning 6 copies. Stand by for verification. Maintain track. Out. I released the transmit button. The sweep line rotated again. The contacts held their geometry. I checked the chronometer. 0156. I recorded the bearing update. They had advanced 300 meters in 2 minutes. Consistent. I should have felt reassured. A clean track meant a clean solution. Instead, my stomach tightened. The water outside the window was dead calm. No chop, no whitecaps, just a flat obsidian sheet swallowed by fog. If a fleet of that size was moving at 8 knots through that viscosity, the displacement should have been audible. A low thrum of diesel engines, the slap of bow waves, the groan of hull steel under load. I pressed my ear to the reinforced glass. Nothing. Only the wind. Only the hum of the cooling fan on the radar console. Only the sound of my own pulse, slow and deliberate. At 0203, the ambient noise in the room shifted. I did not hear it change. I felt it. The air pressure dropped a fraction, enough to make my ears pop. Lindy looked up from his console, frowning. He tapped his headset, rotating the squelch dial. Interference, he muttered. Band 3 is washing out. I'm reading carrier drift, not weather, not atmospheric. I leaned over his shoulder. The audio spectrum display showed a narrowband spike centered at 1.42 megahertz. It pulsed in a repeating sequence. Dot, dot, dash, pause, dot, dash, dash, dash. I recognized the rhythm before I recognized the pattern. It was not random, it was structured. I had trained on signal identification at the Naval Academy in Stockholm. I knew the old encryption cadences. I knew the timing of pre-war naval handbooks. The pulse matched the German Navy's 1941 tactical alert sequence. Kriegsflug protocol, obsolete, decommissioned, irrelevant to every modern vessel in the Baltic. Record it, I said. Isolate the carrier, log the timestamp. Lindy's fingers moved across the patch panel. The tape deck engaged. The reels began to turn. The pulse continued, unchanging, precise. I returned to the radar scope. The contacts had closed to 9.2 nautical miles, bearing 045. The formation had not broken. If anything, it had tightened. 400 meters became 380. They were adjusting for something, or they were being pulled towards something. Berg, I said. Switch to thermal optics. Filter the fog band. Look for heat signatures. He nodded, already moving. The thermal viewer hummed to life, its cooling unit drawing heavy current. He aligned it with the bearing, adjusted the contrast wheel, and stared into the display. His breath caught. Not a gasp, a sharp, controlled intake of air that signals a violation of expectation. Negative, he said, voice lower. Cold returns, ambient temperature matching, no exhaust plumes, no machinery heat, no living mass above baseline. They're not generating thermal, they're not reflecting it. I stepped closer to the scope. The green phosphor glowed against my retinas. I traced the leading edge of the formation with my pencil. The geometry was perfect. Too perfect. Natural vessels drift. Wind pushes them. Currents alter their course. Even disciplined fleets show micro-deviations. These showed none. They moved as a single unit. A single intention. I felt the weight of the silence in the room press down on the console. It was not the absence of noise. It was the presence of something holding its breath. At 0211, the RA 104 speaker erupted, not with static, with a voice, clear, male, mid-frequency, German accent, but stripped of regional inflection. Flat. Procedural. Gryt identify sector command. Provide clearance code for passage. Acknowledge. Lindy's hand froze above the transmit switch. I felt the blood drain from my fingers. The voice was not on our frequency. It had injected itself into the carrier. It bypassed encryption. It bypassed handshake protocol. It spoke as if the channel had never been anything but a conduit for its transmission. I keyed the handset. This is Grytvakt 7. Swedish Coastal Defense. Identify yourself. State vessel name. State intent. Over. Silence. Then the voice returned, unchanged. Cleared for transit. Maintain heading. Acknowledge. I released the handset. My thumb trembled against the plastic. Not from fear. From procedural violation. The exchange did not follow any recognized if sequence. It did not request verification. It assumed compliance. I logged the timestamp. 213. I checked the radar. The contacts were at 8.1 nautical miles. Closing. I switched the display to maximum range compression. The blips sharpened into elongated returns. Hull length consistent with mid-century destroyers. Beam width consistent with wartime tonnage. Draft calculation impossible. I should have ordered a perimeter alert. I should have activated the coastal artillery battery on the southern ridge. Instead, I did what protocol demanded. I verified. I waited. I watched. At 0217, the fog outside the viewport thickened. It did not roll. It coagulated. The water surface vanished entirely. The sound of the waves against the basalt ceased. The room temperature dropped 2 degrees. Lind pulled his jacket tighter. Berg stepped back from the thermal viewer as if the screen had become contaminated. I stared at the radar. The contacts had adjusted bearing. 050. They were no longer tracking south-southwest. They were turning, aligning directly with our position. 9 hulls, 8 knots, perfect spacing, unbroken formation. I picked up the pencil. My hand moved automatically. 0219. Bearing 050. Distance 7.4 nautical. Velocity steady. I wrote the numbers. I did not look away from the scope. I knew, with the cold certainty of a man who has spent too many nights listening to machines, that the water outside was empty. I knew that whatever was approaching was not made of steel and diesel. It was made of signal, of memory, of something the sea had swallowed and refused to digest. I keyed the radio again. Spevakning 6. This is Grytvakt 7. Contacts altering course. Direct intercept bearing 050. Requesting immediate artillery standby and sector command escalation. Over. The response did not come from Spevakning. It came from the tape deck. Lindy's recording. The voice repeated, synchronized with the speaker, overlapping itself into a harmonic dissonance that vibrated in my sternum. Cleared for transit. Maintain heading. Acknowledge. I released the handset. I watched the green line spin. I watched the blips close. I watched the fog press against the glass like a living thing waiting for an invitation. And I understood, for the first time that night, that we were not tracking a fleet. We were being tracked by one. The realization did not bring panic. It brought procedure. When a system behaves outside its parameters, you do not run. You isolate. You record. You prepare for the failure cascade. I shifted the PS-16 into manual gain control, reducing the transmitter output by 40% to minimize feedback loops. The contacts did not fade. They intensified. The radar cross-sections expanded on the display, not because the targets were growing, but because the return signal was carrying harmonic overtones, multipath interference, or something mimicking it with mathematical precision. At 0222, the barometer on the wall console dropped to 998 millibars. The air inside the room grew heavy, saturated with ionization. The smell changed, no longer diesel and damp wool. Ozone, burnt copper. The kind of scent that precedes a lightning strike. but the sky above the fog was a flat, lightless ceiling. I checked the magnetic compass mounted beside the optical viewport. The needle, previously steady at 340, began a slow, continuous drift. Clockwise, then counterclockwise, oscillating within a 2-degree arc. Localized electromagnetic distortion. I logged it. 0223. Compass anomaly confirmed. Correlated with radar contact approach. Lindy, I said. Switch to Balt 4 hydrophone feed. Isolate the acoustic array on bearing 050. Filter out surface wave noise. He tapped a sequence into the switching matrix. The audio output shifted from radio static to a low-frequency rumble. Underwater microphones. Designed to detect submarine propeller cavitation and hull displacement, the feed played back through the console speaker. At first, only the distant groan of tidal currents against the seabed. Then, a rhythm emerged. Not mechanical, not biological. A series of pressure pulses. Synchronized, 12 per minute. Matching the rotation speed of our radar antenna exactly. I leaned closer. The pulses were not random. They carried modulation. I adjusted the equalizer, boosting the mid-range frequencies. The sound clarified. Metallic resonance, torsional stress, the acoustic signature of riveted steel hulls flexing under load. But layered over it, a harmonic interference that made my teeth ache. It sounded like grinding, like gears turning without lubrication. Like a transmission shifting through ratios that did not exist. I watched the chronometer, 0226. The hydrophone feed spiked. The pressure waves intensified. It's not water displacement, I said. It's resonance. The array is picking up structural vibration transmitted through the seabed, not the surface, below it. Berg stepped away from the thermal viewer. His hands were trembling, but his voice remained steady. Sarge. The fog. Look at the edge of the breakwater. I turned. The concrete barrier, usually visible through the reinforced viewport as a dark silhouette against the gray water, was no longer solid. The fog had thinned along a narrow corridor, exactly 400 meters wide, extending outward from our position toward bearing 050. Within that corridor, the air shimmered. Not with heat, with refractive distortion. Light bent around invisible mass, creating a lensing effect that made the distant horizon appear warped, stretched, then compressed. I grabbed the handheld rangefinder. Laser targeting failed. The beam scattered. I switched to optical parallax. The distortion moved. It held the exact spacing of the radar blips. 9 columns of warped air, advancing. At 0231, the first physical manifestation hit. It did not come through the air. It came through the floor. A low-frequency vibration traveled up the concrete foundation, through the soles of my boots, into my ribs. The metal desk shivered. Coffee in a tin mug rippled in concentric rings. The vibration lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then, silence. I checked the seismic log on the secondary console. Magnitude 0.8. Localized. Epicenter moving toward us. Power fluctuation, Lindy said, voice tight. Main grid is dropping. Voltage down to 98%. 96. Generator auto transfer is pending. I reached for the manual override switch. Hold it. Let the backup engage on threshold. I need the radar stable. The lights dimmed. The console illumination shifted to emergency amber. The hum of the fluorescent tubes dropped an octave. Then, the diesel generator outside kicked in. A sharp mechanical cough, followed by the steady thrum of the Caterpillar D342. Power stabilized. The radar sweep resumed. The contacts were at 6.2 nautical miles. The distortion corridor in the fog had widened. The refractive lensing was no longer just bending light. It was pulling moisture. Water droplets from the fog bank coalesced mid-air, suspended in invisible fields, forming temporary shapes. Curves. Angles, the outline of a superstructure. Then it collapsed. Then it reformed further ahead. The phenomenon was not projecting images. It was condensing atmosphere into a temporary lattice, a ghost made of pressure and water. I keyed the backup radio, a PRC-113 in VH simplex mode. Unencrypted. Direct line to the Coastal Artillery Fire Control Bunker on Kungsholmen. Kungsholmen. This is Grytvact 7. Emergency broadcast. 9 unidentified contacts on bearing 050. Range 6.2. Acoustic resonance detected. Magnetic interference active. Requesting visual confirmation from forward observation post Delta. Over. Static. Then a break in the carrier. A voice distorted, stretched thin by the electromagnetic environment. Gryt, see nothing, fog is solid, compass is spinning, wait, sound, low, in the water, feels like machinery, but cold. God, it's cold. Over. I recognized the voice. Corporal Kenson, forward observer, 20 years of service. Unshakable. I keyed back. A Kenson, maintain post, do not engage. Record all acoustic anomalies. Out. The transmission cut. Not to static. To a tone. A pure 400 Hz sine wave. Sustained. Unmodulated. It played for 3 seconds. Then the Pars 113's internal circuit breaker tripped. I smelled the acrid tang of overheated resistors. I pulled the handset. Dead. I switched to the wireline telephone, the landline connecting Gryt to the sector switchboard. I lifted the receiver. No dial tone, only a wet, rhythmic sound, like breathing, but mechanical. Inhale. Exhale, synchronized with the radar sweep. I placed the receiver back on the cradle. The sound continued through the handset cord, through the wall conduit, through the structure itself. At 0239, the anomaly broke protocol. It was not a voice, it was a data packet. The PS-16 radar console, designed to display analog video returns, suddenly flickered. The green phosphor screen washed out, then snapped back with a high-contrast overlay. Text. Alphanumeric. Not Swedish, not English, German naval cipher format. Pre-war. I recognized the header structure. Kennung, Kurs, Geschwindigkeit, identification, course, speed. But the data stream was impossible. It was transmitting our own coordinates, our own bearing, our own operational status, and beneath it, a timestamp. 14 October 1943. Exactly 39 years prior to the second. The same date, the same time, the same barometric pressure, the same wind vector. The anomaly was not moving toward us. It was aligning with us across a temporal axis. Lind, I said, voice barely above a whisper. Photographic capture. Now. He fumbled with the high-speed film camera mounted to the console scope housing. The shutter clicked. Once. Twice. The film advance motor whined. The screen flickered again. The text vanished. The radar returns destabilized. The 9 blips fractured into dozens. Then hundreds. Then back to 9. But the spacing changed. They were no longer abreast. They had shifted to a column formation. Single file, pointing directly at our position. The hydrophone feed spiked. The acoustic resonance doubled in amplitude. The vibration returned, stronger. The coffee mug tipped over. The liquid spread across the logbook, bleeding through the paper, smearing the entries into illegible blue streaks. I did not try to save it. I watched the scope. I watched the fog. I watched the air bend around the unseen mass approaching the breakwater. At 0244, the temperature dropped, not gradually, instantly. The condensation on the viewport froze. Frost crawled across the reinforced glass in fractal patterns, radiating outward from the center like a blooming crystal. The breath plumes in the room hung suspended. The diesel generator outside faltered. Missed a beat. Caught. Missed another. The lights strobed. Amber to darkness to amber. In the strobe I saw it, through the frosted glass. A silhouette, not a ship. A shape. Tall. Narrow. Angled. matching the superstructure of a Zerstrar-class destroyer, but rendered in negative space. A void in the fog. A column of absolute stillness moving against the wind. It passed the outer buoy. No wake. No sound. Only the frost creeping across the glass. Only the 400 Hz tone vibrating through the floorboards. Only the radar screen painting its empty hull in solid green returns. Berg stepped back. His boots slipped on the wet linoleum. He did not fall. He stared at the viewport. His face was pale, not with fear, with recognition. "It's not here," he said. "It's remembering." I did not answer. I logged the timestamp. 0246. Range 1.8 nautical miles. Velocity 0. They had stopped. Outside the breakwater. 9 columns of distorted air. 9 voids in the fog. 9 radar returns holding position. The hydrophone feed went silent. The acoustic resonance ceased. The vibration stopped. The only sound remaining was the generator's labored idle and the slow mechanical breathing from the dead telephone line. I reached for the emergency flare kit. Protocol demanded illumination. Visual confirmation for the coastal battery. I opened the steel case. My fingers closed around the magnesium striker. I did not pull it. I knew, with the certainty of a man standing on the edge of a threshold he was not meant to cross, that light would not reveal them. It would acknowledge them. And acknowledgement, in a system this precise, is a form of engagement. I left the striker on the table. I returned to the console. I adjusted the gain. I watched the sweep. I waited for the next transmission, for the next alignment, for the fleet to decide if we were part of the formation or an obstacle to be cleared. The radar painted the stationary returns with relentless consistency. No drift, no decay, just presence. I noted the compass. The needle had locked, pointing directly at bearing 050. True north was irrelevant. The local field had been rewritten. I checked the atmospheric pressure log. It had stabilized at 982 millibars, a drop of 16 points in 20 minutes. The kind of gradient that precedes a microburst or a pressure vacuum. Outside, the fog began to rotate, slowly, counterclockwise, around the 9 invisible points. A cyclone of mist and ionization, centered on the fleet that was not there. Lind wiped condensation from his brow. His hands hovered over the comms patch panel. Main switchboard is dead. Sector command is offline. We're isolated, Sarge. If they transmit again, we can't answer. We can't even log the handshake. We log what we see, I said. Not what we hear, not what we feel. The machine does not lie, it only records. But the machine was changing. The PS-16's sweep line slowed. 12 revolutions per minute dropped to 9. Then, 6. The generator output held steady. This was not a power failure. This was interference. The returning signal was bleeding into the local oscillator, dragging the timing circuit off axis. I reached for the manual calibration dial. Before I could touch it, the screen flickered again. The green phosphor dimmed. A new layer of data appeared. Not German, not alphanumeric, acoustic waveforms. Visualized on a grid I had never seen on this console. The pattern repeated. 3 short peaks, 1 long valley, 3 short, 1 long. A rhythm embedded in the carrier wave. I had heard it before, in naval history seminars, in declassified signal intelligence briefings, the SOS sequence. But inverted, the peaks were valleys. The valleys were peaks, a distress call played backward, or a call meant for someone who had already drowned. I stepped back from the console. The waveform scrolled across the screen, unchanging, persistent. I looked at Berg. He was staring at his own hands. He flexed his fingers. He touched the frost on the viewport. He wiped it. It returned instantly. The room was sealing itself. Temperature, pressure, signal, all converging on a single coordinate. I felt the weight of the silence press against my eardrums. It was not empty. It was full, filled with data, with history. With the accumulated static of a sea that had swallowed too many hulls and kept their echoes, I reached for the mechanical pencil. I did not write a log entry. I drew the formation. 9 points. Perfect spacing. Bearing 050. I circled the timestamp. ZO251. I underlined it twice. Then the radar sweep stopped. Not a fade, not a glitch, a hard halt. The bright line froze at bearing 270. The screen went dark. The hum of the cart transformer died. The room plunged into amber emergency lighting. The generator outside continued running. The power grid was intact. Only the radar had shut down, or been shut down. I moved to the rear maintenance panel. I checked the breaker array. All fuses intact. Voltage stable at 220. I pressed the system reset button. Nothing. I opened the access hatch to the local oscillator module. The vacuum tubes glowed faintly. The capacitors held charge. The wiring was secure. I placed my hand against the chassis. It was cold. Not room temperature cold. Frost cold. The heatsink had transferred its thermal mass outward. Into the room. Into the floor. Into the water. I closed the hatch. I turned back to the viewport. The frost had spread across the entire glass. Beyond it, the fog had stopped rotating. The distortion columns had vanished. The invisible hulls were gone, or they had merged. I checked the magnetic compass. The needle was spinning again. Faster. A continuous blur of motion. I listened. No hydrophone feed, no radio static, no generator thrum. Only the mechanical breathing from the dead telephone line. It had changed. It was no longer synchronized. It was accelerating. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Matching a heart rate of 120 beats per minute. Not mine, not Lindy's, not Berg's. Something else. Something waiting in the conduit. Something that had traveled from the seabed, through the wire, into the room. I picked up the handset. I held it away from my ear. I watched the cord. It trembled, vibrated, as if carrying a current. I placed the receiver against the steel desk. The desk resonated, a low, metallic hum. I placed my palm flat against the surface. I felt it, a pulse. Rhythmic. Deliberate. I looked at the logbook. The smudged coffee had dried into a dark stain. The pencil marks stood out against the damp paper. 9 points, 1 circle. A timestamp, a coordinate, a record of something that had stopped existing at 0251, or something that had just begun. I did not speak. I did not move. I waited for the breathing to stop. It did not. It continued, steady, relentless. A signal without a source, a message without a sender, a ghost without a hull. And in that silence, I understood the nature of the anomaly. It was not a fleet. It was a frequency. A resonance trapped in the water column, bouncing between the seabed and the atmosphere, echoing off the iron deposits in the basalt, reflecting off the concrete of our station. A loop. A recording, a memory of steel and fire and drowning men, played back on a channel that never closed. We had not detected a ship. We had tuned into a grave. I left the handset on the steel desk. I did not drop it. I placed it parallel to the edge, cord coiled, receiver angled away. Procedure. Even when the system fails, you maintain discipline. I turned to the primary console. The PS16 screen remained dark. The amber emergency lights cast long, static shadows across the logbooks, the coffee stain, the pencil marks. I checked the chronometer. 0252. The generator hummed outside, steady but strained. The air in the room held at 7 degrees Celsius. Pressure 981 millibars. Humidity saturated. I logged it manually. No reliance on automated sensors. I switched to the analog backup gauges on the wall panel. The needle for voltage held at 218. Acceptable. The magnetic flux meter twitched erratically. I noted the variance, plus minus 1500 nanotesla. Localized. Persistent. Linde, I said. Switch to Emergency Protocol Bravo 9. Isolate all external data feeds. Route everything through the hardened terminal. We're going analog. He nodded. His fingers moved across the patch panel, bypassing the main bus, engaging the direct wire backup circuits. The action was mechanical, trained, no hesitation. We were soldiers. We did not debate the impossible. We secured the perimeter. We documented. We prepared for fallout. At 0256, I ordered a perimeter check. Visual confirmation. Physical inspection of the external antenna mast and the seaward observation deck. I handed Berg a tactical flashlight, maglite D-cell, and a PRC-113 handset. Keep it on channel 4. Monitor for structural stress. Report any acoustic anomalies. Do not approach the breakwater edge. 10 meters max. Return in 8 minutes. He took the equipment. Nodded. Opened the heavy steel door. The wind hit first. A sharp, dry gust carrying the smell of ozone and salt. The door closed. The lock engaged. I watched the viewport. The frost had thickened. I could not see beyond the glass. I listened. The generator. The hum of the terminal. The distant scrape of boots on concrete. Then, the voice, faint, filtered through the handset resting on the desk. Grytvac 7. Perimeter check initiated. Moving to observation deck. Fog density maximum. Visibility 0. Temperature dropping. Frost accumulation on railings. Proceeding to mast base. Over. I keyed the mic on my shoulder rig. Copy. Maintain interval. Watch footing. Surface ice likely. Out. I waited. The chronometer advanced. 0258, 0259, 0301, no transmission. I checked the handset on the desk. Dead. I switched to the backup radio. Dead. I felt the familiar tension in my jaw, not panic, assessment. I walked to the viewport. I pressed my palm against the frosted glass. Cold, solid. I listened. The wind had died. Complete silence. Then a sound. Not from outside, from inside the walls. A low rhythmic tapping. Metallic. Intermittent. Like a wrench striking a pipe, or a signal key. I traced it to the conduit running along the floor, the same conduit that carried the dead telephone line. I knelt, placed my ear to the metal. The tapping synchronized with the magnetic flux meter's needle. Up, down, pause, up, down, pause. Not random, structured, Morse, but not standard. The spacing was off. The rhythm dragged. Like a machine winding down, or a pulse slowing. At 0304, the door latch clicked. I stood. Berg entered. He did not speak immediately. He closed the door, secured the lock, removed his gloves. His hands were pale, trembling slightly, not from cold, from vibration. He placed the flashlight and radio on the console. The flashlight lens was cracked. The radio casing was covered in a fine, white crystalline residue. Salt? No. Frost had formed inside the battery compartment. I picked up the handset. Dead weight. Report, I said. Mast base is compromised, he said. Voice flat. Measured. Antenna array is intact structurally, but the feed line is corroded, not rust. Oxidation. Metallic bloom. Looks like galvanic decay. But accelerated. Decades of weathering in minutes. I tried to check the coupling. My glove caught on a ridge. The metal crumbled, like chalk. I pulled back. The residue spread up the sleeve. Not toxic, just cold. Extremely cold. I logged it. 0306. Structural anomaly. Accelerated corrosion. Localized to external feed lines. I checked the residue on the radio. It flaked off when I brushed it. Metallic gray. Crystalline structure. I scraped a sample into a glass vial. Sealed it. Labeled it 307. Sample secured. Acoustic? I asked. None on the deck, he said. But when I reached the breakwater rail, I felt it. Through the soles, through the steel. A resonance. Low frequency. It made my teeth vibrate. I dropped to one knee. Checked the concrete. No cracks. But the frost. It wasn't random. It formed patterns. Concentric rings. Radiating from the waterline. Like ripples. But frozen. mid-air. I nodded. The phenomenon was not just in the air or the water, it was in the ground, in the structure. It was propagating. I moved to the hardened terminal. I initiated a manual reboot sequence for the PS-16, bypassing the main oscillator. Direct current injection. I flipped the breakers, the console hummed, the cart transformer warmed. I held my breath. The screen flickered. Green phosphor ignited. The sweep line returned. 12 RPM, stable. I checked the bearing, 050. Range, 1.2 nautical miles. Velocity, 0. The contacts were still there. Stationary. Perfectly spaced. The radar had not failed. It had been suppressed. And now it was back online, painting the same void with the same precision. I logged the timestamp. 0312. Radar restored. Contact confirmed. Stationary. I keyed the emergency channel. Channel 9. Wideband. Unencrypted. Direct to sector command bunker. Bewaffnung command. This is Gryt Vact 7. Emergency priority. Station 44 is compromised. Radar anomaly active. Structural corrosion on external array. Acoustic resonance propagating through foundation. Requesting immediate technical support and sector lockdown. Over. Static. Then, a break. A voice, not strained this time. Cold. Procedural. Official. Gryt Vact 7. Command acknowledges. Maintain position. Do not attempt external repairs. Preserve all logs. Isolate external feeds. Await further directive. Out. I released the handset. No questions, no extraction. Just preservation. Just contain. I understood the order immediately. They knew. They had always known. This was not a new incident. It was a recurrence. A scheduled echo. The Baltic was not haunted. It was archived. And we were the current custodians of a frequency that refused to decay. At 0318, the temperature dropped again. 5 degrees. The breath plumes hung thick. I pulled on my thermal gloves. Lindy monitored the voltage. Berg secured the perimeter door with additional steel brackets. We worked in silence. The kind of silence that comes from shared understanding. We were not soldiers fighting a threat. We were technicians managing a phenomenon. A phenomenon that had outlasted wars, outlasted nations, outlasted the men who built it. At 0322, the telephone line on the desk rang. Not a dial tone, not static. A sharp, mechanical trill. 1 ring. 2. I stared at it. The handset rested on the cradle. The cord lay coiled. I picked it up, brought it to my ear. Gryt Vact 7, I said, silence. Then, a voice. Not German, not Swedish. English. Neutral. Recorded. Signal integrity verified. Archive loop engaged. Station 44 acknowledged. Maintain frequency. Do not transmit. Do not illuminate. Observe only. Out. The line went dead. I replaced the handset. I checked the chronometer. 0324. I logged the transmission. Source unknown. Language English. Content directive. I did not question it. I filed it. Under classification. Pending review. The radar sweep continued. Unchanged. The contacts held. The fog outside remained thick. But the distortion columns were gone. The refractive lensing had collapsed. The fleet had not left. It had settled. It had anchored. I walked to the viewport. The frost had receded slightly. I could see the breakwater rail, the concrete, the water beyond, still, flat, obsidian, no wake, no ripple, only the radar's green paint on the console, telling me what my eyes refused to accept. I sat at the desk. I opened a fresh logbook. I began to write, not in code, not in shorthand, in plain text, for whoever would read it, for whoever would inherit the station, for whoever would sit in this chair, at this hour, and hear the sea remember. 0328. Environmental stabilization pending. Pressure holding at 979 millibars. Temperature -2. Humidity saturated. External array compromised but structurally sound. Radar operational. Contact stationary. Bearing 050. Range 1.2 nautical. No visual confirmation. Acoustic resonance ceased. Telephone directive received. Source unknown. Content: maintain frequency, observe only. Crew status: alert. No casualties, no panic. Procedure maintained, awaiting further directive. End entry. I closed the book. I looked at Lindy. At Berg. We did not speak. We listened. The generator hummed. The console clicked. The sweep line rotated. And beneath it all, so faint I felt it more than heard it, a new sound. Not breathing, not tapping. A hum. Low. Constant, 50 hertz. The frequency of the grid, but modulated. Carrying data. Carrying memory. I placed my palm on the console. The steel was warm. The vibration traveled through my bones. I did not pull away. I leaned into it. I let it resonate. I understood now. We were not outside the loop. We were inside it. The station was the antenna. The sea was the medium. And we were the receivers. Tuned to a channel that had been broadcasting since the water closed over the hulls, since the men stopped calling for help, since the silence became the signal. I checked the chronometer. 0335. The sweep line continued. The contacts held. The fog did not move, and I waited. Not for rescue, not for resolution, for the next transmission, for the next alignment, for the sea to decide if we were worthy of the frequency, or if we would be added to the archive. I kept my hands on the desk. I kept my eyes on the scope. I kept my breath steady. And I listened.